LPGL Chola, a second-year student of Northern Bukidnon State College, taking up Bachelor in Early Childhood Education. And the topic that I'm going to discuss today is about teacher as a person in society and the morality and the foundational moral principle. What is a teacher as a person in society? In today's society, the nation has high hopes on teachers as they are one of the most influential people in the person's life. So, aside from being a facilitator to the 21st century students, teachers are the role models who can greatly affect the child's future. Teachers are one of the most significant members of the society. They are also one of the most influential professionals in the community. Before a teacher becomes a professional facilitator, motivator, and initiator, teachers are essential learners of their own nature. Teachers are also students before they became what they are today. Professionals will not be professionals without professional teachers in the society. Socially speaking, teachers are active contributors in the progression and development in the social institution. There are teachers' beliefs that enable them to be professionally developed. Initially, before a teacher can develop children's way of learning, they should have to develop themselves first. So let us know and understand the meaning of the morality and the foundational moral principle to help us cope in the huge expectation from the society. So what is morality? Morality is a belief about what is right behavior and what is wrong behavior. For example, when John took Arlene's bread without asking permission, John's action will be considered wrong as he commits an action that is contrary to the norm, which is stealing is wrong. So, an action of man will be considered good if it doesn't lack what rational being should do. So let us know what is a foundational moral principle is. A foundational moral principle is the universal norm upon which all other principles on the rightness or wrongness of an action are based. The foundational moral principle is based from the natural law, where it is written in our hearts. It is the law that says, as a human being, we have to do good and avoid evil. So, teachers should always be a person with a good moral character. Morality is not just to know what is right from wrong, but it is also trying to make things right if it is wrong. The profession of being a teacher should provide us with our own principles of moral. So, as what I've said earlier, the foundational moral principle is based from the natural law, where it is written in our hearts. The identity of a teacher includes the moral character and the way that they behave with their principles. It is not enough that one has the professional license, because as a true educator is educated and a true learner is learned. So I'm gonna end this presentation with a quote from a famous author, Henry Brooks Adams. He once said, "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." Thank you for your time. God bless each and every one of us.
Hello everyone, my name is Fritz Dwight Q. Barry, and today I'll be presenting to you my report, and my report is all about a teacher as a person of good moral character. Now let's proceed to my slide.
Teachers as a person of good moral character. Now, being a teacher is a profession that needs to set a good example for their students. This takes a certain amount of good moral character. A good teacher will build relationship with its students, relationship that consists of mutual trust and respect. This can be seen as an essential element of learning process. If a student respects and trusts his or her teacher, they will trust and respect the message and knowledge that the teacher imparts to them. Whatever social structure and governing bodies we have, we need to have a certain amount of trust in them and those who teach, and knowing this is very important as we're also being developed as future educators. Now, for the contents of this report: the characteristics of a good teacher, rules of a teacher in developing morality of students. The characteristics of a good teacher. First, leadership. Either from a natural ability through a process of learning, good teachers will have leadership qualities and skills. They will use this attribute to encourage the students to follow the path of learning that has been set for them, and to generate a real interest in the subject. Organization. Organizational skills are extremely important to good teaching. This has to be obvious in the way that the teacher has prepared for the lesson they are giving, and in addition, the structure of the lesson, providing a natural flow for developing the subject being taught. Communication. Understanding the art of a good communication is essential for anyone in a position of delivering knowledge to others. This skills involves speaking, listening, and watching. With regard to speaking, the teacher has to be able to deliver the subject in a voice manner that will generate interest and response from the student. The changes in the tune, emphasis in the voice, and the delivery will stop the tutoring from becoming a monotonous dirge and will compel the students to pay attention. However, communication is also about listening, so all of these things is based on the communication. Now, relationship. A good teacher will build relationship with his students. Relationship that consists of mutual trust and respect. As we said earlier, this can be seen as an essential element of the learning process. Discipline. To excel at his craft, a good teacher will also know how to maintain discipline within the classroom, without which the opportunity of delivering a positive and headed message will be seriously undermined. Humor. Just a humor is a part of life, so it plays a role in teaching when used appropriately. It can add texture, realism, and life to even those subjects that many students might consider mundane. Commitment. Finally, a good teacher has a commitment to work. Many will say that it is a vocational calling, whether others agree with it or not. Yes, and there is no doubt that the best teachers have a passion for their work and for imparting knowledge to those willing and ready to learn. Now, a teacher needs to set a good example for their students, right? This takes a certain amount of good moral character. I'm not saying that they all have to attend church every Sunday. What I am suggesting is realizing that their position requires them to display acceptable behavior in the community where the students idolize them and act just like them. Now, how important was the good moral character of a teacher to the learners? Now, it is important because a teacher also has an important part to teaching moral values or character building to their students. They can impart values to the lesson topic or activity at the class, because when the teachers have a good belief, it will influence the students. they will respect the teacher and obey the teacher's advice, and also learn faster because they respect and believe in the teacher to influence them. Now, next, roles of a teacher in developing morality of students. First, moral model or exemplar. Teachers play important role as moral model or exemplar to students. As teachers, they are the second important person in the children's life after their parents, as they spend more time with their teacher in school comparing with their working parents. The children are most likely idolizing their teachers, who have some attractive characteristics like caring, optimistic, passionate, and so on. The children will imitate the behaviors and actions of their teachers. Therefore, teachers should first have moral personality and make the moral values into practice in his or her life so that they can act as moral exemplar to the students. They should also demonstrate their moral virtues such as respect and responsibility both in and out of the school so that the students will learn from them in their daily life too. Now, they should show their respect to the students' rights regardless of their background and model responsibility by fulfilling their duties as teachers. Moral mentor. Teachers play role as moral mentors who not only convey subject matter knowledge like language, mathematics, and science, but also concern on moral development of their students. Students may seek for their advice in moral reasoning process and discussion making. Next, creator of caring environment. Now, the quality of teacher-student relationship can influence students' academic and social outcomes. The teachers should get closer to understand their students deeply so that they will be able to help them to learn and develop their morality. It is important for teachers to create a caring environment in the classroom or school. Next, include in calculating moral values. Moral value is the basis of what people believe about themselves and others. Moral values are universal values, accepted and associated with the moral values practiced in a society, nation, and globe. Next is facilitator of students' moral development. One of the most important parts. Now, teachers are as facilitators in developing students' morality. They should provide the opportunities to students to use moral reasoning skills independently. Because students should have self-regulation so that they could monitor their own behavior and action. They should be given a chance to train to resolve the moral dilemmas with skills that they learn. This can help them to be more capable to apply the skills in real life situations and choose the appropriate behavior. Besides, students should be given rules that acquire moral responsibility. Now, next, counselor. Teachers act as counselor who can listen to students' problem and offer advice in their moral reasoning process. Teachers have to be a good listener by displaying their patience in handling students' problem. And lastly, the moral communicator. Teachers also act as communication bridge between students and their parents. The social pattern of the student is mostly being observed in the school as is a small community because teachers are more understanding to students' behavior and attitudes that they display in school. Teachers should talk or communicate with their parents when they find that the students are not behaving well or when some conflicts occurred. so that their parents can know about their students' behavior in school. They discuss the problem to find out the solution with both students and parents. And that was all for this report. Thank you.
Hello, good day everyone. I am Jane Eloblin, and this time I'm going to tackle about the value formation, which are the number 1, cognitive, affective, and behavioral dimensions. Number 2, training of intellect and will. Number 3, Max Keller's hierarchy of values. And number 4 is values hierarchy. But before I discuss that, let us know what values means. So values comes from the Latin word valere, which means to measure the worth of something. Values are the human principles or beliefs that are extremely valuable or desirable. And values are basic and fundamental beliefs that guide or motivate attitudes or actions. Now, let us tackle about the cognitive, affective, and behavioral dimensions. So, this is the 3 dimension. So, cognitive dimension is the mental understanding and readiness. In short, kung mag-form ta og usa ka value when it comes to cognitive, we must understand the value that we want to acquire. Also, we need to know why we have this value, and we need to know how to live by that value. So that is the cognitive. We are thinking how and why. So next is affective dimension, experience towards something. The more we can experience, the more we have so many feelings that we will experience. Also, we can feel value like honesty and industry. Next is the behavioral dimension, living by the value. Dire giingon nga living by that value is the true acid test. So behavioral kung yun sa ba nato makapag-adapt og isa ka behavior og value. So mo na siyang cognitive, affective, and behavioral dimension. Let's proceed to the training of the intellect and will. So when we say intellect, it is about our mind. And will is the determination sa usa ka butang or will power. Your intellect discerns a value and present it to the will as a right or wrong value. It says nga ang atong hunahuna ang nag-decide when it comes to values. Kung unsa nga value ang dapat nato makuha, kung tama ba or mali. Your will wills to act on the right value and wills to avoid the wrong value presented by your intellect. Ang determination or will nato always niya ginaak or ganapili ang right value. Also, ang determination or will nato kay naay kaya nga i-avoid or dili niya buhaton ang wrong value presented by our mind or intellect. So, as described by St. Thomas Aquinas, the intellect proposes and the will disposes. So, ang intellect nato ang nag-propose kung unsa man ang value ang dapat nato i-formulate o ang will nato ang ga-dispose sa atong gingon nga wrong value nga dapat dili nato makuha. It is therefore necessary that you develop your intellect and its 3 functions. So, namely, formation of ideas, judgment, and reasoning. So, dapat kung mag-formulate ka og idea, mag-judge ka og usa ka tao, og mag-reason out ka, dapat sakto jud. Kay kung sakto tanan ang imong gabuhaton, syempre, tsada og sakto pod ang iyahang outcome. So, mao na siya. And now, let's proceed to number 3, Max Keller's hierarchy of values. So, based on Max Keller's hierarchy, he rates our values from lowest to highest. So, unsa iyang gihimo nga value of hierarchy? Mao ni siya ang pleasure values, vital values, spiritual values, and values of the holy. So, what is pleasure values? Pleasure values is the pleasant against the unpleasant, the agreeable against the disagreeable, and or sensual feelings and experience of pleasure and pain. Next is vital values. So, values pertaining to the well-being either of the individual or of the community. This is the health, vitality, capability, and excellence. Next is spiritual values. So, values independent of the whole sphere of the body and of the environment, such as graphs in spiritual acts of preferring, loving, and hating. Aesthetic values, the beauty against ugliness, values of right and wrong, and values of pure knowledge. So, next is the values of the holy. Appear only in regard to objects intentionally given as absolute objects. This is the belief, adoration, and bliss. So, based on Max Keller's hierarchy of values, the highest values are those that pertain to the Supreme Being, while the lowest are those that pertain to sensual pleasures. According to Keller, we act and live well if we stick to his hierarchy of values, such as giving greater preference to the higher values. We will live miserably if we distort Keller's hierarchy of values, like for instance when we subordinate spiritual values to pleasure values. So, muna siya ang Max Keller's hierarchy of values. And now, let's discuss the values hierarchy, my last topic. So, the question is, what is the highest value and what is the lowest value? So, first of all, Max Keller in 1874 to 1928 presented the following principles in deciding the rank of values. So, first, the longer the value lasts, the higher it is. So, this is what we call the timelessness. For example, while the value of pleasure lasts for the duration of the feeling of pleasure, the mental value remains after the disappearance of the circumstances. Second, the harder it is to reduce the quality of the value as its carrier divides, or the harder it is to increase the quality of the value as its carrier enlarges, the higher the value is. And this is the indivisibility. For example, while the value of material goods reduces as the goods divide, the value of mental goods is indivisible and not related to the number of people concerned. Third, the higher value becomes the base for the lower value. The fewer other values the value has its base, the higher it is. So this is independence. So fourth, there is an intrinsic relationship between the rank of the value and depth of satisfaction from its realization. In other words, the deeper the satisfaction connected to the value is, the higher the value is. So this is what we call the depth of satisfaction. So for example, the physical satisfaction is strong but shallow. On the contrary, the satisfaction from artistic meditation is a deep experience. The depth of satisfaction is not related to its strength. And last, fifth, the less sense of the value is related to the existence of its carrier, the higher the value is. So this is what we call the absoluteness. So, for example, the value of pleasure has significance in relation to the sense of sensuality. The value of life exists for those with the sense of life, but the moral value exists absolutely and independently from those who feel it. So that's the 5 principles based on the study of Max Keller's hierarchy of values. And that's all about my topic about value formation, and I hope that you understand my report. So thank you and God bless.
The teaching profession reporting. Okay. Teaching. It means investing your personal time, energy, and resources. Sometimes it means disappointment, heartaches, and pains. But touching the heart of people and opening the minds of children can give you joy, contentment, which money could not buy. So, teaching is your profession. So, you will invest your time. You give your time to the children to teach them. You need to give your effort to do visual aids, to do reports, to do many things that a teacher needs to do. Teaching as vocation, mission, and profession. Teaching as vocation comes from the Latin word vocare, which means to call. So, if you are called, if there is a call, there must be a caller and someone who is called. So, it means that God called you to be a teacher. God called you to be a professional, to give to give meaning in this life, to give children knowledge, to give all the time you spend to the children. Teacher who practice teaching as his vocation responds to the strong feeling or calling for service, just like the historical biblical, with utmost dedication. It was God who called you here for you to teach. God called you to give the knowledge you have to the children as they grow. Teaching as mission comes from the Latin word missio, which means to send. So, it was also God sent you to this world to teach children, to give your effort and time to the children. You are called to be teacher as you sent to the world to accomplish a mission. So mission is also like a purpose. Your purpose in living in this world is to teach children, to teach and to give your time to the children, to give them knowledge. The task entrusted to you, so it was the work that was given to you by God. To teach is to encourage every children entrusted in your care to become better. So, teaching is also encouraging the children to have a better life in the future and to give them knowledge as they grow old. Teaching as profession, one of the most exalted in the English language, nothing as it does long and arduous years of preparation, a striving for excellence, a dedication to the public interest, and commitment to moral and ethical values. So, if you take teaching as your profession, you must be willing to go through a period of preparation and a continuing professional development. So, as I know, teaching as profession is when you are still studying, you are still working, you're still studying in school to make and to have your profession someday, to become a teacher someday, and to have the most memorable times in college, to be a teacher, to share your knowledge to the children you teach us. Thank you, and that's all. This is Jelrose Dahe. Thank you.
Good day, I am Jean Robe and I'll be presenting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But before we proceed to our main discussion, I just want to share some info about who among United Nations countries voted in favor or abstains for the declarations. So, there are 28 countries voted in favor of the declaration, including the Philippines, United Kingdom, and the United States of America. Well, there are 10 countries who voted, abstained, and undecided for the Declaration of the Human Rights. The preamble of Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes and inherent the dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family. The human rights should be protected by the rule of law, which is the due process of law, and is essential to promote the development and friendly relationships between all nations. It recognizes the equal rights of men and women, and the member states have pledged themselves to achieve and promote the universal respects and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms. So the preamble is considered as a seminal document because it establishes and defines the ways that people and nations should treat human rights. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. The preamble also states that the governments commit themselves and their people to progressive measures that secure the universal and effective recognition of the observance of the human rights set out in the Declaration. So what is Universal Declaration of Human Rights? It is an international document adopted by the United Nations General Assembly that enshrines the rights and freedoms of all human beings. The United Nations General Assembly adopted the original version of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on 1948. The intention was to safeguard the international community against atrocities, which is occurred during World War II, and this is condensed a version of the original document. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, that every individuals and every organ of society keeping this declaration constantly in mind. It is considered as the milestone document for its universalist language and the first step in the formulation of the International Bill of Rights, started on 1966 and completed on 1976. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is accepted as Resolution 217 of Third Session on the 10th day of December 1948 at Paris, France. It is considered the groundbreaking for providing a comprehensive universal set of principles. Then, it consists of 30 articles, and these are which the articles 1 to 2 is the establishment of basic concept of dignity, liberty, and equality, while the articles 3 to 5 establish other individual rights such as the right of life and prohibition of slavery and torture. The articles 6 to 11 is the fundamental legality of human rights with specific remedies for their defense when violated. And the articles 12 to 17 is a set forth for the rights of the individual. The articles 18 to 21 is the sanction that so-called constitutional liberties and spiritual political freedoms. Articles 22 to 27 states that upholds the unexpansive rights to a standard of living and provide additional accommodation, while the Article 28 to 30 is the establishment of the general means of exercising these rights and provide impediments. As you can see, I highlighted the Articles 26, which is the right to education, and Article 29 is the duty to the community. So Article 26 is the right of education. It states that everyone has the right of education and it should be free, especially the elementary and fundamental stages, and it should be compulsory. While the technical and professional education are made generally available, and the higher education shall be equally accessible to all the bases of merit. The education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of the respect of human rights and fundamental freedoms. It should promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, and shall further the activities of the United Nations. And of course, the parents have a prior rights. According to Article 26, the parents have a prior rights to choose what kind of education that shall be given to their children. Article 29 states that everyone has the duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. Then, in the exercise of these rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subjected only to such limitations as are determined by the law solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others of the meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in democratic society. These rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised in contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. So, Articles 26 recognize the free of education, and Articles 29 recognize the commitment to the community. So, hypothetically, the Universal Declaration compasses provisions serve as the yardstick, the yardstick and point of references by which countries' commitments of human rights are judged, such as through treaty bodies and various human rights as implemented. On the other hand, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights surpassed some praises because on October 5, 1995, Pope John Paul II said that, I quote, "It is one of the highest provisions of human of our time." And Marcellus Pantofora, a member of the European Union, said that the Universal Human Rights Declaration is placed human rights at the center of the framework of principles of education shaping relations within the international community. However, despite of the praises of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, there are still criticisms from Islamic countries, the right to refuse to kill policy, and the American Anthropological Association, and of course the Bangkok Declaration. So that's all about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I hope you understand my discussion.